Hello guys, I'm Super Ron, welcome back to the channel, and we are back in the G unit with the absolutely stunning Mk1 Golf Cabriolet. You've seen this in the last few episodes where we've been diagnosing a few problems, we've been upgrading the fuel system, but when we were doing that we came across quite a lot of wiring problems. So that is what we're going to fix in this episode. And if you've seen my wiring episodes before, you know this is going to quite possibly escalate pretty quick. The spec on this car is pretty insane. As you can see in the engine bay, it's got an Audi TT 1.8 turbocharged engine, which is not an uncommon conversion these days. You've seen it on the channel many times before, but this is mated to a 6-speed gearbox, which is not easy to get in a Mk1. The engine conversion alone creates a whole bundle of wires compared to the original engine that was in here, but inside the spec is even bigger. It's had all the usual upgrades fitted, like electric windows, central locking, but it's also got a heated front seat, it's got a heated windscreen, it's got electronic power steering, it's got electronic speedo, it's got a full multimedia system in it, and all these things require wires. So at the minute, everything does work, but because it's all been added on, there's about 100 inline fuses coming out the back of the fuse box, and it just looks an absolute mess. So that is what we're going to do today. We're going to keep everything that's on it, we're just going to wire it in a lot better. And for that, again, we spoke to our friends at 12 Volt Planet. Also, I showed you in the previous episode, whoever extended the wiring looms got a little bit confused with their wiring colours. When you put the dip beam on this side, the main beam came on, and when you put the main beam on, the spotlights went off. So all the wires were round the wrong way. So I did rectify that, but the owner has complained that the headlights are pretty rubbish on this, and it is a common thing on the Mk1 because there's no relays. The power goes from the battery into the fuse box, out of the fuse box, into the ignition switch, into the light switch, back into the fuse box, and then all the way to the front. So by the time you actually get here, especially with 40-year-old wiring now, you haven't got 12 volts. So we're going to make a new headlight loom as well, just to continue the upgrade. And then he will have all the power coming out of these. So let me show you inside what we are dealing with. And on the surface, I'll agree, it does look an absolute mess. Things have just been added on, and we've got so many inline fuses everywhere. Nothing was labelled. We've got inline fuse, inline fuse, inline fuse, inline fuse, inline fuse. Everything's just been piggybacked on. Every time you take out a panel, another inline fuse and little relay falls out, and nothing was labelled, and we didn't have a clue what did what. So I spent a bit of time with the multimeter working out what ran what was powered by what, and how the whole system worked. And on the face of it, it's all not that bad. It's just a bit messy because it's all been added on piece after piece. What I did like was how they've done their engine conversion. This is the buzz bar out of the Audi TT, and what they've done is they've incorporated that into the engine management. There's a buzz bar on the top, and when the ECU activates the relays, that opens certain buzz bar point, which is really handy for the conversion because you can put rings on the top and keep it all nice and neat. On the TT, there's usually a big relay here for the wipers, and what they've done is cut that out and slotted the Vagtronics fuse box for the engine conversion in there. So that's a really nice, they've made nice brackets up for it, so that sits in there like that. That's the ECU all mounted underneath. That is a really nice bit. So it's really neat and tidy. I've even thought about copying this now for future conversions that I do. So that sits in there, that's not a problem. It's all the extra relays and everything, nothing was labelled. But now we've got some sense made of it. We've got central locking, lock and unlock. We've got our E-pass. These were for the heated seat. All of this is for the heated front windscreen, and that piggybacks off the heated rear screen. So they come on together. It's got a full multimedia DVD system in there, but that's all a bit added on and added on. It's got the Audi TT seats in there as well, and it's got the Audi TT heated seat buttons, and this is a really nice bit that I do like. The way it mounts in the TT is it actually mounts to the plastic housing on the back, not to the bezels there. So they couldn't just build a flat plate, so they've made this whole little construction for it all to slot in. And then we've got the electric windows in the middle. This is for all the GPS and everything for the Pioneer head unit. We've got the E-pass under this side with its little controller and the varying dial, so that's all done nicely. We've got our electronic throttle pedal under there and a hydraulic clutch conversion. We've got all the controller for the E-pass just bolted up on that side. And this little box down here is very cool. This is for the electronic speedo. Because the Mk1 is a cable speedo, and it's got the 6-speed gearbox in it, which is electronic speedo, there's no cable output to run the Mk1 clocks. So what this little thing is, it's a stepper motor in there, and it has a GPS input, and it's got a little GPS antenna that sits on the dash, and it processes the signal, and it's got a motor in here which turns a speedo cable which in turn turns the speedo. So this little thing runs the speedo cable that then runs the speedo up at the clocks, which is very cool. But again, it's just kind of added in on an inline fuse. There's the tacho converter for the rev counter. There's the OBD port. And just like the headlights at the front, where they've been extending looms around the car, they've got themselves a little bit mixed up. The fuel pump earth was run through the fuel tank sender, so the gauge didn't work, and there's all little bits and pieces like that. And the other thing is, both fuel pumps are run off the same standard Mk1 relay and fuse in the fuse box. At the factory, the lift pump and the main pump do run off that same relay, but we've got two massive upgraded fuel pumps running 340 litres per hour each, and they're about 14-15 amps each, so I think that system is right on its limit. And also, if there's either a problem with either one, they're not fused individually, so that'll just wipe out the whole lot. Less than ideal, and just like all the unlabelling, a nightmare for diagnostic problems in the future. So my main aim for today is to leave all the components where they are, but sort out the power distribution, where we've got all those inline fuses everywhere, and I'm going to be redoing the headlights with relays and having them fused individually. I'm going to be redoing the fuel pump wiring, having them relayed and fused individually. We just want a really nice, neat setup, so it's just not spaghetti everywhere. And my delivery has just come through. 12-volt Planet in the house. If you've seen the camper conversion, you would have seen that they supplied all the bits for the inside of that, the battery charger, all the wiring, the fuse panels, the switches, all the sockets. So that is why I went to them again. And I'm pretty sure they are on the wall. They're there, on the front, and they do supply some nice goods. So let's have a look at what we've got. A few more stickers, shiny ones, can go up on the shiny wall, I think. Oh, perfect size. So we've got some wiring, wires. And for extending the headlight wiring, I'm using all factory colours, but with modern cable inside. So we've got black and yellow, black and white, yellow, and brown, so it's all going to be the factory coloured wiring. Got some heat shrinks, load of relays, and then a new little relay box, and a new 16-way fuse box. So we haven't got all them individual inline fuses. We can wire all of those nice and neat into the back of this. So all you'll see from the front, nice uniform fuse set. And these are also modular, so you can take off the legs this side and actually slot together, so it'll sit nicely in there as one block. We've got a few different types of relays, which I'll go through more when we're doing the individual circuit, but nothing is going to be on spades. They're all going to be permanently fixed into the back of the housing, which will give a nice factory clean look. In the absolutely stunning engine bay, there are a few little bits that just aren't quite finished off how I'd like them. It's had loads of bodywork done, a lot of the engine bay's been smoothed, and it's all been painted in the candy red, but just things like the wiring loom for the headlights still runs in its factory position, and it just looks a bit odd coming across there. And there's no reason why it can't come out underneath the chassis leg, hide under there, and then pop up to the headlights in front of the washer bottle. Also, another annoyance, things like that. The horn is there on an L bracket, just needs to be flipped, and that could hide under there as well, and that'll just tidy everything up. So I'm not going for a full flush bay install, but I'm just going to be tidying things as we go. So we're going to be running new headlight wires out from there. They'll run underneath and just pop up there, and then go over to this side as well. I'm going to check the wiring on the Bosch 44, which sits down there. We rerouted all the fuel pipes last time. I just need to check the wiring. Then we've got this headlight on this side as well, making a much neater bay. So first things first, I need to make a little plan. I need to work out what I want fused, what I want relays, where everything is going to go. I'm going to have the headlights on a relay, but they're going to be fused individually left and right. So if a headlight bulb does blow and it pops the fuse, you've still got the other headlights just like factory. So let's get my drawing pad out. And here we are. So our 4 relays are going to be main beam, dip beam, fuel pump, and front heated screen. These are going to be run off the buzz bar. Then our fuses are going to be split left, right for dip and main beam, fuel pump, heated screen. Then our inline fuses that are in there are for the heated seats, central lock-in, and electronic speedo. So that's 11 fuses there. We've actually got 16 spaces, so that'll give us room for expansion in the future. And if I find anything else that I need doing, I'm going to leave this one for the front fuel pump. I'm going to leave the rear fuel pump off the standard relay. So now I can have a think about where our wiring is going to run. Wiring size, I've gone for 1mm squared cable, which is 16.5 amps, which will be plenty for headlights. It's a thin wall cable, so we can make nice looms together, because there is going to be 6 of these running together down the car. And handily, on the AMC reels, 12-volt planet right on there. The cable size and what amperage it is, just makes it a lot easier when you're trying to make looms in the future. A normal headlight is 55 watts, so at 12 volts, that's only 4.5 amps. So having 16 amp cable does seem a little bit excessive, but on the main beam side, you can have 2 headlights on each wire, 110 watts, so that's 9 amps, so we're still well under, but that just gives us that little bit of wiggle room if he wants to put some massive 100-watt motorsport headlight bulbs in. The wiring can take it. Here are all our relays, all made by Durite, so nice quality items. We've got our standard 4-pin relays. And for those that don't know, a relay is just basically a big electronic switch. What it allows you to do is have a big current coming in and a big draw going out, but it can be controlled by a small switch. Something like a radiator fan that can pull 20 amps would just melt a little switch like this. But what you can use is a switch to switch on the relay, and then the relay to switch on the fan, which is what we're doing with the headlights to make sure they get direct feed straight from the battery. So standard configuration, you have your big 12-volt power here, you have your feed to whatever you're running, you have your ignition live in, and then this side goes to earth. And if we look at the picture, it's got a little switch on the top, so when the 2 middle ones make contact, that pulls the switch down and creates a circuit. On this one, this is actually a 5-pin. Now, some 5-pin relays are switchable, but I don't know if we can see. This one has got 2 87s. So the extra pin is just an additional output, because like I say, we want to run left and right. So it'll have 2 outputs from the relay. They'll both be doing the same thing. It just means we don't have to bunch loads of wires into the same terminal. It's a 40 amp relay, and each side is still rated to 20 amps. So like I said, we'll be barely going over 10 amps for our headlights, so we are well within spec. This will be our relay for our fuel pump, and this is a standard 4-pin relay, but it does have a resistor in, and that's because this one is being controlled by our ECU. And what can happen with a relay, when the circuits are open, it can send a spike back down the feed. Doesn't really matter if you're just using a basic switch like that, they don't really care. But when you're using an ECU, you really don't want that firing back. So that's just got a little resistor going across to solve that. And then for our heated screen, that's just going to be a straight on-off relay sitting in the holder. So let's get our headlight loom out and start working out our lengths, and then work out where we're going to run it all. First off, of course, let's wrap it up. Protect that lovely candy paintwork. So looking down at this corner, got a few more wires. Could probably do with tidying up. But like I said, they'd connected the wrong side of the headlight. So when dip beam was on, that put the main beams here, and when you put the main beams on here, the main beam there went out. So all they've done is just disconnected it, so they didn't work at all. So let's just unwrap this. We can still use all the conduit and everything. Under here, we can see where everything rolls in. It just goes through the factory boots. So I should be able to pull that out with the factory plug and remove all this as one, just like factory. And that's my plan for going forwards as well. Just keep it really usable, make sure it all unplugs nicely. But just taking 5 more minutes thinking about where you're going to run the wires makes the final package much, much nicer. So I've just pulled out the little tab, slid the feet off that one, slid the feet off this one. Now they click together, so you just got one modular unit. So I can bolt that in, and all the wires will run almost internally. And you have little caps on the back. Keep it safe, like that. So just to show you why we're doing the headlight loom, although the headlights do look bright, it's running at the moment, but at the headlight itself, we've only got 11 volts. If we put the positive on a positive ring, the car is charging at 14.2 volts, which is perfect, but all that is getting to the headlight bulb is barely 11 volts. But once we're done, we're going to have a 14.2 volts all the way to the headlight. Before I take anything apart actually, I just want to see what the voltage is at the fuel pump, just out of curiosity. So power at the fuel pump is 11 volts as well. And that is the problem in these old cars, because everything's so manual. It's going through the ignition switch, through the fuse box, through the light switches, through the relay box. By the time it actually gets to the components, you're losing so much power. But once the Super Ron loom is complete, we'll carry out this test again, and I think the results will be quite different. Here's the loom all set out on the top. I don't think it's actually been extended. I think this is all the standard loom. They've just rewrapped it in this nice conduit because you've got all the bits in the normal places. You've got your headlight, dip and main, you've got your side light, you've got the ones for the spotlight, you've got your indicator, and then it goes over this side, and we've got exactly the same this side. We've got our main beam, dip beam, spotlight, side light, and indicator. But then coming out this end, we've got another random one that goes all the way back round to this side, and that's for the squirters. I think the squirters used to be on that side and they got moved over, but we've got this super long wire that goes all the way from here, all the way along, all the way back to go to this position, but it actually runs up here, so I can get rid of all that and we can just come straight out of this loom straight into the pipe instead of going all that way. We've got our radiator fans on here, and we've got our horn. That's all standard stuff. That looks like the standard radiator plugs, and all they've done is just split it for the twin fans. So I'll just check what that joint is like. That's for the horn, that's for the alarm. Everything seems okay. So let's just see if we can hide this underneath and pop it up, or whether we're gonna have to extend these ones. If not, I can just make all my new wires exactly the same length as the old ones, which should be handy. But if we do just need to extend this one so it pops down and up into the back of the headlight, it's not really that big a deal. And then just cable tied behind all that loom was the fuel pump wires. So I think they're all right. We'll just reconnect them to a relay inside. I'll just double check what size wire they are, make sure they're okay. So let's see if we can tuck this one down and pop it up. So the answer to that is no, not quite. The side light does reach, the main beam just isn't quite long enough, so it just needs a little bit of extension. But with that running down under there, when we put the bottle back in and the air filter is back on there, that would leave all this nice and clear, much better. I'll also run the pipe for the washer jets down and under as well, so that will just tidy all that up. So we need to extend this one just by about that much, and the other side will all be fine. So let's unwrap all this. I'll get the wires out I need, put the ones back in that I want to add, and then I'll probably put it all back in this conduit because it's nice and neat, nice and safe, and looks nice and tidy. And it's all naked, but there's nothing horrendous in here. Here's the headlight plug for the other side. Here's our white, yellow and brown headlight wires we're going to be replacing. It has been fudged around with a bit, and also it's got the factory wiring for spotlights. So I'm not sure why they added the extra wire into the dip beam. Don't know, maybe they got confused, but that'll all be going. That all goes round. They also ran nice new wires to the fans, so that's good. Won't have to touch that. So that's got brand new wire running all the way through to the fan. On the other headlight, again, it's been chopped around a little bit. Not quite sure why, but that'll be going, and we'll be just going one wire all the way from our relay straight to the pin. So there'll be no voltage drop, none of these bad earth connections. That's all going to be sorted out, but most of the rest of it is just going to be left as it is. So now if we pop inside to our fuse box and just get to the other side of these wires so we can chop them out. This headlight problem is quite common on a Mark 1, and companies do make a complete plug and play loom. Basically what I'm doing, but I don't really like these, and I'll show you why. So this is kind of what I'm doing, but not as well. They've got two relays, one for dip beam, one for main beam. They've got a main power in from the battery through a fuse to the relays. And then it's got these terminals, which this looks just like a bulb. So that plugs into your original, and then it uses that input to switch each relay. And then you have your outputs that plug into each headlight. The thing I don't like about this, there's just one fuse for both dip beams and both main beams. So if you have any problem with any bulb or any filament, and it blows the fuse, you lose all your headlights. So we're going to have separate fuses, just like factory, for each dip beam left and right, each main beam left and right. But this is essentially what we're going to be doing. We're just going to use the car's old headlight wires to activate our relay, and then that'll put the full battery power of to the headlight. So just as an easy solution, this will work, and this will give you full battery voltage straight to your headlights because it's not going through the factory fuse box. But if there's ever an issue with anything on this loom, or your headlights, or your bulb, it blows the fuse and then you lose all your headlights. Less than ideal. But there are options if you're not super on. And like I said, I've got all the correct factory coloured wires. So on the passenger side, we've got yellow and black stripe for dip beam. Main beam should be white and black stripe, but it's white there. But if we go back a bit, we've got white and black and yellow and black. So obviously it's had a driver's side plug put on the passenger side. And then on the actual driver's side, we are white and yellow. So I'm going to replicate that on our new wires. Hopefully idiot-proofing the whole thing. Fingers crossed. So after a lot of thinking, I've decided to put the new fuse box on the side of the heater box there, so it's nicely tucked with everything else. And the cabriolets do have that big reinforcement bar dash pad that goes along there, so it should be pretty well hidden, but convenient enough that you can get down in the footwell if there is an issue. So now we've got our from and our to, because of course our to is the headlights. I started to run the wires. So I've taped everything back up, and then we've got our new headlight loom. We've got dip, main and earth. And over this side, we've got our new headlight loom, dip, main and earth. And I've also run a bit more of a substantial wire for the fuel pump as well. So I've got this about lengthed up. We've got our radiator fans and everything still at the front. We're still using the old original indicator and side lights because they don't really take a lot of power, so they're not too worried if there is a little bit of a drop through the fuse box. It's just our headlights that we wanted brightening up. And with this fresh loom, straight from a relay, these are going to be beaming, quite literally. So I've been running everything inside ready, so now I can shorten these down and take it over to our fuse box point. With everything being so modular, I can actually wire up a lot of this to start with. So we'll have 2 coming out of our relays to each headlight fuse, another 2 for these headlights to these 2 fuses. We've got our heated screen, we've got our fuel pump, can all be linked backwards and forwards here before I put it in the car. So that'll make it nice and neat. I can really measure out and get it down to the fusix. Then we can work out our fly leads, where they're going to go each way. The other thing that's quite nice, don't know if you can quite see it, but all the terminals for the relays are labelled on the back. Because when you're wiring up a relay holder like this, you have it down, and then you have your relay, and you place that in, and you think, okay, if that's 30 on that side, you flip it over, so that will be now on this side. With these, it is all written in. So let's get the crimps out, and start wiring this up. And there's our first bit, all wired in. So we've got our relays at the top, our fuses at the bottom. So we've got some of our main powers in. We'll go through the fuse, then into the relay for our fuel pump, for our heated screen. Because we're splitting the relays on the lights, they're coming in the main, straight into the relay, then coming out into individually fused. I've used the wire colours that are the same as what's going in the headlights. So we've got our white and yellow, we've got our white and yellow, and the same for the stripe. So that's going to line up. They're going to plug into this side of the fuse box. These 3 are going to be positive switch relays. So we'll have our positive switches going in the tops. So that means we could just daisy chain the earths, because that's going to be super low current. And then the fuel pump is negative switch, so we'll just put an ignition live to that. Now we can start to try this in the car. So now we can get this in situ and start trimming our looms to length to reach the new fuse box. I've just been going through all the individual wiring that we're going to be transferring to our new fuse box, and seeing where they're plugged in, where they get their power from. And what I've just found out on this one, these 2 here are for the heated seats. So there's 2 15 amp fuses, 1 for each side, and that was plugged into the back of the fuse box into points G, which are for individual fuses, which is these posts just in here. And that is exactly what they're for on the CE1 fuse box. They're for individual circuits, usually optional extras like electric mirrors, electric windows, and heated seats. So it was plugged into the correct terminal, G3, which is for heated seats, but G3 is actually fused by fuse number 12, which is a 15 amp. So it went through the fuse box, through a 15 amp fuse, then out the back, and then it's run through 2 more 15 amp fuses. So really, these aren't necessary. So we can connect these up straight to the back of the fuse box, which will make this a lot neater. There's also this massive grey earth that was in the headlight loom that didn't actually go anywhere. So with a bit of knowledge, a lot of this can safely be removed because it's not actually needed. We've got this little one here, which is a little 5 amp ignition live, and that is for the electric speedo. So it's just a case of going through, removing what we don't need. There's a lot here that can simply just be removed. And then what is left will be going through our new fuse box. My thought process continued with the heated seats, because when I looked at the wires, there was one really thick wire and then one really thin wire. And then when I follow them back, both switches are actually fed off the same feed. So it comes into one, out of that, and into the other one. So I got onto the wiring diagrams, and what it turns out, there's one main big fuse in, which is a big 15 ampere, and then there's an ignition live in, which wakes everything up. The reason I looked into it some more, because I was going to run these to my fuse box and just have them on a lesser amperage fuse than the main one. So if there was any trouble just with one side, it wouldn't pop both and it wouldn't pop the main one. But these aren't left and right. I've just been finalising the headlight loom, so now that's going to run up there nice and neat and just clip in the back of the headlight. I've got new plugs and new terminals. You can buy them in little kits. They just come as an H4, because as we saw on the old ones, there's lots of joins and all the old wiring's a bit knackered. I've got the main beam in there already, and that's got the fly lead that's going to come off and go to the other headlight. I've just crimped on the dip beam terminal that goes on the top, and then this side will be the earth, and they'll sit on there. We've got our side lights to go in under there. That's our wire for our alarm. That's all going to hide down there nice and neat, leaving this really nice and empty. So you can just see the loom that pops out there, and then it runs under the chassis leg, or it used to run along here and along here. It now runs underneath. So there it is, runs along and then to here. Then I've taken out the wires that I need, so all the headlight ones come out here. This one's for the horn and for the washer jet, so they're all going to go there. And this one runs along. We got our radiator fans that pop out, carries on along. Got a fuel pump that pops out, and that carries on up to the other headlight. That's a lot neater under here now. I'll fix that on properly when we're all in the right place. The horn used to stick out there so you could see it from the top, so all we're going to do is just rotate it and stick it under there instead, so it's all nice and hidden. Just little touches like that make a huge difference. This is the plug for the side light, so instead of cutting and joining, we can put new terminals on this as well. These are actually the same as the normal connector blocks. It's just got its own little plug, so I can reuse the plug, put new terminals on, and we won't have any joiners. I had this set from years ago when I was rewiring the kit cart, some of you might remember, and as it turns out, I didn't even know, these were all from 12 volt Planet as well. So they've in fact been on the channel for a long time. So these are the two little terminals that we need. So I can deep-in these, we'll keep the plug, and these ones will clip in the plug on our new wires. So wherever possible, I try and keep it so there's no joins. We just go from the terminal on the back of the plug all the way one piece of wire to where its source comes from. That just future-proofs it, because everywhere there is a join, that's a possible source of future failure point. So we'll build it just like they did at the factory. Like so. So there's our headlight all finished. This is for our side light, and that's for our main beam. So I've just taken the old pins out of the side light holder, and these ones clip straight in. Just like factory. And the same with the long ones for the main beam. Clip in like that. So we've got our factory plugs, but we've not got any joins. And there it is, all reinstalled. Looking nice and tidy. From the top really, you're not going to see anything at all. With the torch you can see where it runs. Then we've got our alarm one going up to the popper. But in here we've got no wires at all. I've rerouted it underneath. Also the start and charge loom used to come along here and then rest along that engine mount there. The same with the airflow meter. So I've just rerouted them underneath as well. So they run under the chassis leg. And that's just made it look $1 million. Looks so much better, and I haven't really changed anything, just routed it a little bit differently. So I've just got this side done, headlight on, main beam on, same again, just deep-in that and reuse the plugs with new terminals. So this side's ready to plug in. So the last thing left just to wire in this side is the windscreen washers. So that's just 2 wires going to the pump. It's a bit of a shame that's there really, because with the air filter there and now no looms, this would look a really tidy flushed loom. Maybe in the future I'll talk to the owner and we can relocate that either in the car or in the scuttle. The only thing is I'm not sure what is behind the bracket. I think the bracket was on that side, and then when they put the swell pot there, they then moved it to this side. But when you put the air filter back on, you can imagine this side being completely empty, which does look very cool. All wired in. Now we've got the pipe that goes to it. That used to run across the top as well, and I want to run that underneath, but it's not going to be quite long enough. But because it used to be on that side, the washer jet, it comes out of the washer jet, through the bonnet, through the grommet, and it used to run down here. But we have got plenty of pipe because it comes out of there, comes across to this side, down, across the scuttle panel, and then out this side. So there is actually a grommet with a hole in on this side. So we just come out of here, straight, under, and pop up in the bottom. Then I'll put some sheathing on that and make it look as neat as I can. And if we look inside, everything is now descending to the same point. I've been running everything in braid. It just looks a bit nicer, keeps it nice and neat and tidy. So that all runs around. You can see where it comes out of our headlight loom. You can see all our new bits there. We've got our heated seats coming down. We've got our heated window coming down with our trigger as well from the switch extended. So that all now comes down to our fuse box. We've got our old headlight wires. So all they're going to do now is trigger the relay. And then there's all our headlight wires going back and our fuel pump as well. I've added a few more terminals to the fuse box, so that's all ready to roll. So now we can start connecting the car loom up to our fuse box. Because of the forward planning earlier, where I used the correct headlight colours on each terminal on the relays, now when our headlight loom comes in, it can just go colour to colour, and I'll know exactly where it's got to go. No confusion. So let's start putting some terminals on these, and then these can clip in the back of here, and then we can run our lives up to our points up there. So we are now getting in order, but every time I do move something, I just find another disaster. We've got the head unit wire in here for the stereo, and it looks like it's been put in and then redone. You can see there's been bits added on, bits of earth's changed. It's all just a little bit messy. And funnily enough, the head unit doesn't work. So we're going to run the stereo wiring through our fuse box as well. So that'll just come up and go up to the head unit. I'm also going to wire the heated seats up just as per factory. So we've got our thick wire, which will be a battery positive, and then we've got an accessory live, which will turn it on. So it'll be just wired up, just how the TT is, all running through our fuse box. So I'll come back when this is a bit neater. And all connected up, easy as that. So we've kept all our colour coding together. We've got all our yellows on the first one, all our whites on the next one. We've got a heated screen, and then we've got a fuel pump. So these three are completely wired in now. So all we just need is the feed and the trigger for the fuel pump relay, which comes from the ECU. That's already tapped into the other fuel pump relay. So we'll just run that round and that'll trigger our relay here. But it's starting to come together, and that's going to look super professional under there. And previous Ron had been here before, labelled fuel pump trigger. So we'll just tap into that and run that to our relay. So it's probably still looking a little bit messy, but we are definitely getting somewhere. I've got all the powers to the fuse box now going to this big terminal. So that'll go to the buzz bar, which is directly to the battery. So that's all the powers sorted. I've been sorting out the bits in the back of the fuse box, trying to get them a bit more uniform. I've done the wires that go all the way to the fuel tank. So we've got our fuel sender and a fuel pump. We've got some terminals that I want to change. This is where the front fuel pump was teed into. Obviously, we've got that going to our relay now. So I'll put some proper terminals on that and join that back together like factory, getting rid of that. We've got a few more bits to tidy up in here, a few earths. And it's just a case of trying to bunch these back together just so they look a bit neater. It doesn't look quite such a spaghetti. So we'll chop these off, put something better in there. We are coming together, even though it doesn't quite look it yet. And people do often ask if I'm a solderer or a crimper, and wherever possible I crimp. So we've got these crimps that just like the factory ones. That's back together. Put our heat shrink over it, and it looks much better, and of course solid. And lots more done. Probably still looks just as much as a mess to you guys, but now we are actually getting some sense out of it all. We've got everything batched together where it needs to go. Got the new fuse box all over here. The other thing I've done, which is the same problem that the headlights have, where they go through the ignition switch, through all the switches and everything else, is the starter wires. So I'm going to run that through a relay as well. So what I've done is interrupted the starter wire. So the starter key is now going to trigger the relay, and then I'll have a main power going through the relay straight to the starter. So that'll get full 12 volts. And what I've got for that is a little relay holder, just like these ones are on top. But these ones have little fuse holders in as well. So what I'm going to do with that, I'm going to have the relay sitting on top, and then I'm going to use two of the fuses to replace the inline ones that are for the central lock-in. We still have got a couple of fuses spare in this, but just to save running it from here all the way around and then all the way back again, these are the relays for the central lock-in. So I'll put the relay holder there, which will be for the starter, and then the two fuses will be for the central lock-in. So it'll be nice and neat and compact over here, like so. So they're fixed back up on the top. So now we've got 3 relays, central lock-in, and then the starter relay. Then we've got the 2 fuses there, which will be for those 2 relays. And got rid of all these inline fuses. So it just looks a lot neater on the back. And also, when everything's back together, if you do have a problem, you can actually get to the fuses instead of having to drop the fuse board and everything else just to get to them. So I think we're just about ready to pop all this back up and get to our final fit. So we're nearly there now. Got the label maker out again. We've got dip beam, main beam, heated screen, front fuel pump, and then I'll label all the fuses on the top. We've got our central lock-in fuses, we've got rear pump, central lock-in, and start. So the last bit, we've got 2 fuse holders here, and that's going to go up to the stereo. So just making the ISO wires here, because it was just tapped into the heater blower motor, and that has quite a big fuse on it, and apart from that there was no other fuse. So we'll run the ISO cable to our little fuse box, and then that'll all be fused separately as well. And in, so that's the last fuse all connected up. So now we are fully wired. Everything is ready, just can put the fuses in now for the stereo. But now all our terminals are in, just like the secondary lock-in that the relays have. The fuse box also has one. That slides in the end here. That just fully secures all them in. So now we can bolt this in for the final time. I think it's time to actually test that this is all going to work. I've been sitting in this footwell for days now. Wiring just takes so long, but it is so satisfying and it looks so much better now. So let's see if it works. And I have just finished off underneath as well. Got all the fuel pump wiring in. Put everything on P-clips so it's not just cable tied, it's actually fully secured. Got the boots and everything on because it's obviously out in the weather out here. Everything is connected. Horns all connected up. Washer jets are all connected up. And it is all hidden under the chassis leg. Nice and neat. So let's put some electricity through it. So we should have side lights, dip beam, and main beam. Should have indicator, indicator, horn, and washer jets. Perfect. Full house. And now it should start with all our new fuel pump wiring. The tank should still be primed. Straight up. So now we've got all this power and this safe wiring, we're going to upgrade the headlight bulbs as well. So we've got the Osram night breaker bulbs for the dip and main beam and the spotlights. And I've just got some little LED side lights. These are still standard 55 watt. They are all direct replacement. So we've got the H4, we've got the H3, and then we've got the T4W side lights. But as claimed, up to 200% brighter. And there we are, both sides in. The camera really doesn't do it justice, but these are so much whiter, so much brighter. And this is with the engine not even running. So these are only at under 12 volts at the minute, and they are crystal clear white. So that should be a massive improvement. I've got the last few bits all tidied up under here. Everything's cable tied up. Got the last few little bits all taped together. And I think that is looking super neat and tidy. Got everything for the middle back in. Got the stereo all wired up. Everything is looking good. Like I said earlier, the electronic speedo goes up under the dash beam under there. So then that will plug in. That's all ready and waiting. Everything is labelled. Got the heated seats working. So just like in the TT. Electric windows. Super fast. All the illumination's working. So now I can put the lower dash back in and we'll get the interior back together. And just while I was getting all the interior back in, had it running and the fans kick in. So that is our last bit ticked off. That is full house. So everything looks okay. We've got no leaks. All the electrics are working. I'd say our mission is complete. So now we can unwrap it.